I'm Al McFarland. Welcome to the conversation with Al McFarland. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Friday, October 18th, 2024. We're days away, less than 20 days away from, I think, a moment of, what do you call it? A moment of decision, certainly that, but there are better ways to describe it. I think a moment of transformation, transition, a moment of consequence. Of course, I'm referring to the elections, the contest between Democrats and Republicans at the national level, as well as at local levels, but at the national level, it's significant that Democratic candidate Vice President Kamala Harris is facing the former President Donald Trump in the contest to become the next president of the United States. And of course, everybody I know is rooting for and working for Kamala Harris. We think that the choices are clear and critical, serious. We have to prevent the slide back into history, back into a negative and painful history that we believe is envisioned by and desired by Donald Trump and the people he represents, the MAGA crowd, people who want to, as they say, make America great again. We read that to say, make white America great again. And the definition of that, from our point of view, is some iteration of suppression of Black people in particular, but Black, brown, immigrant populations, women, everybody, a reimposition and a validation of a white male hierarchical system that is exploitative in nature and that seeks some kind of acceptance that it believes that its preeminence in the world is ordained and unstoppable. Well, I believe that the absolute opposite is true, that the reach and expanse and growth of white supremacy in the world has reached its zenith and is on the decline, and that people continue to seek liberation. In fact, that people have never stopped resisting the drive and the imperial movement of white supremacy across the planet, that when it's all said and done, the planet is resilient, humanity is resilient, and though it may take a long time being generations, that justice at some point in time, truth emerge victorious over the voices, the ideas, the collusions that impoverish some for the benefit of the few. So that's kind of what's in the plate. Friday, we call this program the Healing Circle. Dr. B is my collaborator for today. She's not in today, but Dr. Oliver Williams is. Dr. Williams, how are you doing, brother? Good to see you. Welcome again.
Good to see you, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good as well. And so today's program is going to be a good one because I wanted you and I and our special guest to talk about the world in general, politics, local, personal, just a conversation. Brothers talking about where we are and how we move in the world as community and through our organizations, our affiliations, our intent, our associations. We're going to be talking momentarily. We'll bring in Brother Olalekan Obadiah, who is the president of Minnesota Institute for Nigerian Development. That organization celebrated Nigerian Independence Day, which was October 1st. A few days ago, I had the pleasure to be a participant in that. And in fact, our colleague, Dr. B, Dr. Akinsanya, her husband and partner, Brother Yeli Akinsanya, is one of the active members, and she is as a family. And I had the pleasure of being their guest at the event, and it was a wonderful event. I wanted to ask Brother Ola to come and talk about that event, the Nigerian community in Minnesota, the Nigeria story, and the Nigerian people, all of that in the context of what's happening in the world today. So it should be a fun conversation. Dr. Oliver, I'm going to ask you to do the protocol, sharing with people how we roll on Friday, Friday the Healing Circle. Would you
Mm.
start with that?
Yeah. Among the things that we do is try to have a circle where we share a talking stick. And when you have the talking stick, then you have the opportunity to be able to say your piece, and other people may ask for it. When I've seen it done with us, but also in other places, it's pretty orderly. But it gives people a chance to sort of share their thoughts about different topics. And in another circumstance, if we were live with a group of people, then what we would do is we'd be in a circle, and we'd be in a circle because it doesn't show anything in terms of hierarchy. It's something where people get a chance to sort of share their voices with one another, and it's more egalitarian. But among the things that we try to do is we try to show a difference between uh, persons that are older and people that are our elders. And we want to acknowledge our elders because our elders are people that are closest to our ancestors, and our ancestors are closest to God. So, what we want to do is ask for the talking stick before we get a chance to sort of share something. So with that, I'm going to, uh, turn it back over to Baba Al, and he'll take it from there.
Well, thank you, Dr. Oliver. And let's bring in Brother Ola Obadiah. Brother, welcome to the program. And let me say that how much I enjoyed being at the MIND, that's Minnesota Institute for Nigerian Development, celebration of Nigerian independence a couple of weeks ago. It was a wonderful event. And thank you for letting me be a part of that. I felt at home and in a place that I belonged. I have said, and I continue to say, that I am a Nigerian. I am a Yoruba man. I say that because of my DNA, and I had the 23andMe and also the African ancestry DNA systems done. And I think African ancestry is the one that said that on my matrilineal side, I am 99% Yoruba of Nigeria today. So I walk proudly as a Yoruba man and feel at home among Yoruba and Nigerian people. But with that, and I think before we went on, Dr. Oliver, you're saying that you're 40% Nigerian or Yoruba as well, I think. I'm not sure.
I don't know whether I'm Yoruba, but
Okay, but Nigerian.
I'm 40% Nigerian, and I know that it must come largely from my mother's side.
Mhm.
So, but who knows? I need to get a chance to sort of break that down and
Yeah.
figure out what tribe I'm from. I have a friend who's a director of family uh, uh, institute in New York, who's and I'm very proud of her. I claim her as my daughter. I think I try to do that most of the time, but her parents, she's 100% Nigerian. Both her parents are from Nigeria, but she grew up in the Twin Cities,
Mhm.
and she went to Harvard undergraduate and then Harvard Medical School, and she's a psychiatrist in New York, and so a brilliant young woman, and
Mhm.
so very proud of her accomplishment. But her family is something else. So anyway, glad to be associated with Nigeria.
Well, let me pass the talking stick to Brother Ola. Welcome to the conversation. And if you would introduce yourself, your work, and your role as the president of MIND, Minnesota Institute of Nigerian Development. Take a few minutes to talk about the organization, its founding, its mission, and how it carries out its work to unify and support and uplift the families and the culture.
Um, Good afternoon, brothers. Thank you very much for um, taking time out of your schedule, busy schedule, I suppose, to have me on this program, Healing Circle. I really appreciate that. I also want to thank um, our big brother, uh, Mr. McFarlane, for gracing our Independence Day celebration this year. It was a huge honor to have somebody like you in our midst. And I cannot thank my brother, Mr. Akinyele, and his wife enough um, for bringing you to attend that occasion. You see, as God will have it, I was just standing outside trying to welcome a guest, our invited guest, and I happened to be right there when you came in, and I have the singular honor of taking you to your seat. So please, it's the first time. It's not going to be the last time. I'm not going to let you go, actually. And by extension, I'll be inviting our brother, Dr. Oliver Williams, to our next Independence Day celebration.
Very good. Yeah, I was supposed to be at that event, but I took ill and
Oh,
couldn't make it. So
okay. Thank God for your health. You are back and bouncing. We are grateful to God for that. That event that day, there were a lot of social events going on in the Nigerian community that kind of impacted us a little bit. But that is um, typically how things happen because being Nigeria umbrella organization, each family still have their own life to live. Each individual, of course, have their own life to live. So uh, I think it was a sign of progress also. But as usual, I think at the end of the day, we had fun. Let me quickly talk a little bit about myself. Then I'll digress to mind. I came to this country 23 years ago. I was already a registered nurse in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, I retired from the Nigerian Army as a operating room nurse. Then I had worked briefly with a Shell Oil and Gas Company in the operating room for about 2 years. Then I got um, the connection to come to a place they call Minosera, the organization that brought me and my family. Um, Actually, the nursing home where I work initially is down the street here in Minneapolis. They are called the Good Samaritan Society. Now, I was brought to uh, their long care facility very close to university. So the name University Good Samaritan Society. Prior, back home in Nigeria, I have no idea about what long-term care is all about. Everything we do at home, as far as health care system is concerned, it's either you are in the hospital or you are in the clinic. Now, when it comes to taking care of the elderly, they are part and parcel of the family. So you see the grandmas, the grandpas at home um, being taken care of by their kids and their grandchildren. I remember when we were in the elementary school, we'll come back home to meet our grandparents. They were the spirit around us at home. Oh, you don't do this, don't do this. Why we take care of them too? You go get this for me. So by the time our parents comes back, they're going to make their house in order as far as grandparents can do. They have a way of spoiling little kids up till today. But that was how a typical. I'm going to speak from Yoruba perspective. I know it's not too different from other part of Black man nation, especially Nigeria. The young take care of the elderly, and the elderly supervise the grandchildren, and that is how we were brought up. So when I got the job, right from Nigeria, University Good Samaritan, so I was encapsulated by the word university. So I thought I was going to work in a university environment. So we got here, and the following day, the work started through orientation. We were about, in that group, I think we were about 10 families. Out of that 10 families, I think 3 of the families were both nurses, husband and wife, like myself and my wife were both nurses. So we got the first baptism that in America, you just have to work every day. I will not forget quickly that that first day at work, obviously during orientation, we were all sleeping from the jet lag. Another thing that was a little bit, there are a lot of cultural shocks. I don't think this program today will permit me to go through all that. I hope maybe in the future we have more time to really talk about it.
Yes.
Now we came here, and my contract required that I should work with the facility, the Good Samaritan, for 2 years. And at the end of the 2 years, I shift base to hospital-based hospital. I work at Unity Hospital in Freely in their med-surg unit for, I think, about 7 years. Then from there, I did my master's adult and geriatric nurse practitioner at Metro State University. During that period, however, I moved to another unit at Unity Hospital, the geriatric unit, adult mental health unit. So I was there for about 5 years total. Then I left as I graduated from my training as a nurse practitioner, and since ever then I've been working as a nurse practitioner. Mind has, there are things we do for our community. At that time, I didn't know anything about Mind. So one of the events we normally take care of for Nigerian community in general is we facilitate with our consulate office from New York. Minnesota is under the jurisdiction of New York, Nigerian consulate. New York. We have 3 consulate offices in America presently. The headquarters, of course, in DC. There's one in Atlanta, and the third one is in New York, under which jurisdiction Minnesota fell. So I remember that year they came to organize this passport traveling document verification exercise, they call it. And I got to know about it at work. And I look at our traveling documents. I came here with my 2 daughters. I think at that time, my wife had the last boy, Ludari Daniel, the last son. He's the only one that was born in America here. So he need to have a Nigerian passport, and the remaining 4 of us need to renew our own. So I got this information, I went there. That was how I got to know that there's an umbrella organization that is called Minnesota Institute for Nigerian Development. And of course, that was my first encounter with Dr. Uni. He was the president at that time. I remember the place was a little bit rowdy, and people were in a hurry. They want to do it quickly and go. And when we got there, I was confused. Was like, what is going on here? My background being a military person, I was like, no. I stepped into the foray to tell, hey, we can do better than this. Why don't we do this? And surprisingly, everybody listened, and we all wait for our time. And the event was successful. And it was my turn, my family. That Friday, it wasn't our turn. A lot of people got there before us. So we had our own the following Saturday morning. So it was during the Saturday morning that Dr. Oni approached me and he said, who are you? So I kind of introduced myself, and we want you in Mind. And what is Mind? So he told me, basically, Minnesota Institute for Nigerian Development, Mind, is the umbrella organization for every cultural, regional, or even professional organization of Nigeria descent in Minnesota. Where a national body representation is required, that is where you are going to see MIND. Of course, Nigeria is, I used to describe Nigeria with a word that I think I found in the Bible those days, a place they call Tower of Babel. Tower of Babel, where God confused the language of men and women and made them not to understand each other anymore, and made them to scatter all over the face of the earth, so that there's a region in Nigeria after a kilometer or a mile, so to say, you are going to meet different people with different language, different culture. It's like that. So there is three major tribes that have a larger population: the Hausa and the Fulanis. It used to be the Hausas. Fulanis from the north and Hausas from the north. The Fulanis will be about 8% of Nigerian population, but because they have a lot of commonalities with the Hausas from the north, back in the days we call them Hausa Fulani. So they will be the majority, followed by the Yorubas from the southwest, then followed by the Igbos from the southeast. As a matter of fact, when Nigeria got independence in 1960, Nigeria was divided into three regions: the north, the west, and the east. Those three regions currently have given birth to 36 states, with Nigeria Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, as number 7. So the FCT is not, it doesn't enjoy a state status like a DC, just like DC, it's just Federal Capital Territory. So those three regions have given birth to 36 states. MIND will, like I said, will always show up when a national body representation for Nigerian community is expected, is required. Historically speaking, I was told, I'm just telling you this from my own perspective. There is no document for me to read anywhere, but from what people said, MIND used to be a very strong organization back in the days. And at that time, all these other splinter groups, the Yorubas, the Igbos, the Sumata from the north, the Yoruba, etc., were not there. It was only MIND. Somewhere along the line, people realized that, no, we cannot all stay together. There are other things we should do back home in our own locality that MIND may not be able to do. So that gives rise to that, all these splinters group. But when it comes to national issue, it's always MIND. Those are the two first things we do to show up for national representation, be it within government or social cycle when that representation is required. With also this passport exercise we do, those are major things we do for Nigerians in the state of Minnesota. However, in between those two things, there are other social events we organize, like the Independence Day celebration. Nigeria got independence on October 1st, 1960. Usually that day will fall during the week. This year it was on a Tuesday. So it's enshrined in a MIND, most of our parando, that the first Saturday in October, that event will be celebrated. So if you mark your calendar right now, the one for next year, I think is going to be October 4th.
Okay.
October 4th?
4th, yes. So that's going to be the first Saturday in October. I think next week, Independence Day celebration is going to be on a Tuesday or so. I'm not very sure. So sometimes on that particular day, we go around and do parade in the evening after work and all this kind of stuff. But it's not every time, especially, our weather in Minnesota is not predictable. Sometimes in October, it's very cold.
Yes.
This year, the weather has been very wonderful. I don't know how long we're going to have it this way. I have no idea. So for that reason, the parade on Independence Day is not always very common. In fact, in the past 10 years, I don't think we had one. But if we look at the weather next year, if it's looking good, yes, we'll always try to have one on that particular day. But that is not going to take away the celebration on the Saturday, the first Saturday of the month.
Mhm.
That is briefly about Mind.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. It's a great story. And so I think I mentioned to you, I had attended one of the Mind events almost 15, 20 years ago, some long time ago, when the keynote speaker was, I don't think you were here then. You may have been, I'm not sure. But the Nigerian author,
Professor Wale Soyinka.
yes, Professor Wole Soyinka. Were you here then? Were you?
I was in Minnesota, but not part of Mind. I was not part of
I've got a photograph upstairs on my desk of me and Professor Soyinka at the Mind event, and it was a wonderful event. But I remember that the community was sensitive about having come through conflict at home. The conflict emanated from oil issues between what was being called the Biafran community and the greater Nigerian community. So how has Nigeria managed to grow away from or through that conflict into a cohesive vision that is moving the nation and the people forward? Is that a fair description of what has happened over the past 30 years?
Yes, to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And for personal disclosure, what I'm going to tell you in response to this your question is
Mm-hmm.
my own perspective.
Sure.
To some quarters, maybe a score of argument, maybe I would say in a single word that Nigeria is a work in progress. That's the way I would see it. Because Nigeria is trying to avoid the event that led to the World War, I mean, the first civil unrest. Nigeria is trying to do everything to avoid that. What led to that war was something that was avoidable. When Nigeria got independence from the British, remember Nigeria was divided into 3 regions. The region where I was born and made and raised, the Yorubas, our leader at that time, his name was Late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, a visionary leader. And he basically suggested that Nigeria should have a confederal system of government where each region can develop at their own pace.
Mm-hmm.
And being the first premier of that region, western region of Nigeria, he did a lot of good works. That region was ahead of even many European countries. That region got the first television station in Africa ahead of France. The headquarters was in Ibadan. Western part of Nigeria got, if you read about first television station in Africa, you're going to see Nigeria, but it was in Ibadan, the headquarters of western part of Nigeria. Mm-hmm. So because of that is audacity. Other part of Nigeria did not like the idea. They term him like somebody who want to break the unity of Nigeria. Wise people always see far than other people. Mm-hmm. He was a very wise man. That man came earlier than his time. So fast forward, that idea was truncated. So Nigeria was wedged together loosely. Of course, each region was still doing their own thing. It will surprise you to hear that some of the let's take, for instance, the Nigeria House in London, where Nigeria consulate is in London right now.
Mm-hmm.
Was built by the government of Western region of Nigeria. It was called Oduduwa House. It was when Nigeria was turned to a unitary system of government after the war that the federal government took over that building. There are other things indeed all over the world. Now that Nigeria should go through federalism, where each region, like we practice here in America, in Minnesota, we are developing at our own pace, doing our own thing, but we are still part of the union. But some people don't like that. Part of the country that didn't like it was the Igbos, the southeast. But the first military coup in Nigeria was organized by military officers from that region because they don't like the direction Nigeria was going to. That was briefly what led to that war. Now, this leader of Yorubas, the Awolowo of the man I was talking about, was in prison for treasonable felony in Calabar. During that time, we were told that the British actually told the federal government, being led by the Hausa Fulani at that time, to release him from prison and to make him the finance minister. So he was part and parcel of that military government. They fought the war. It was a bitter war. Some of us that were born, that were very young that time, I remember they would say the Biafra is coming, let's run into the bush. Who knows? Soldiers don't operate in the city, they operate in the bush. We could be in the jungle for 2-3 days. They'll say, okay, they're not coming again, let's go back to the village or something like that. I remember that vividly. But from that time till today, there has been this mutual suspiciousness. That is the way I would put it, among the three major ethnic groups. I think what is wedging Nigeria together, this is purely my own perspective. And people who know me in the community, they will say, all I will tell you is mine. Yes. I think it is the other regions wedging Nigeria together. Middle Belt, the Niger Belt people, because they are in the middle. You talk about states like Delta State, state like River State, Bayelsa State, Akwa Ibom, Cross Rivers, Benue, Niger, Kogi State, Kwara State. Those people, they are in the middle of Nigeria. And when I engage some of my friends from that region, the question they ask is, who do you want us to follow? The Yorubas, the Igbos, or the Hausas? And these are good people. In fact, the first oil well of Nigeria was discovered at a place we call Oloibiri. That was shortly after the independence. Oloibiri is in River State. I think it's in the present Bayelsa State right now. So while the wealth of Nigeria was based on farm produce, heavily cocoa farm from western part of Nigeria, coal from the east, groundnut and cotton from the north, the discovery of oil from the south was a game changer. So obviously, the north doesn't want that part to go. So basically, in my own little perspective, the people at the center of that country are the people working us together. That's my own opinion.
And so they sort of create both a buffer and a glue, right?
Yes.
A binding that brings
Yes.
my own family, I think, and through 23andMe, I identified a person who I've not met yet. We haven't communicated. He's he's a young man, 23 or 4 years old, and he's in California. I think his people are in Houston, but his name is Dienma. That's the first name. Dienma, what's the last name? I'll think of it in a second. So I'm getting old in my memory. It's not as, but his family is from Port Harcourt, and And so I'm trying to reach out to him or to some of the family name who are in Houston to see if I can make a direct connection. But 23andMe says that Diema Bipialaka, his last name is Bipialaka. But that doesn't sound like a Yoruba name.
No, it's not.
And so, and if he's from River State or from Port Harcourt is River State, right or not? Am I right or wrong? Is Port Harcourt in River State?
Yeah, Port Harcourt is in River State. That is the capital
So
city of River State. Yes.
So his family is from Port Harcourt, and on his information, it says that his third great grandfather or great grandparent, might not be father, but he and I share the same third, in my case, or fourth or third great grandparent. So we have a common ancestor, could be man, could be a woman, 4 generations back. But that's my direct connection to living people right now. That's the one that I know of. And I'm trying to figure out how to make the actual in-person acquaintance with them. But I'm fascinated by knowing that we both have the same great grandparent, and that's the community that my bloodline comes through. So I don't know. It's exciting to know. And I have said, Brother Olu, that the challenge for African Americans and Africans in the diaspora who were cut off from their lineage, their history, their knowledge of self by the transatlantic slave trade and by the intentional effort for the colonizers and the enslavers to erase our sense of history and our sense of knowledge, our sense of self, our sense of even our own agency as human beings. Their message and methodology attempted to brutalize our people enslaved into a submission where if they were successful, we would accept that condition as a natural condition and a definition of who we were, that we would not have any knowledge of our antiquity, our ancestry, our generational, existence, and our own sense of being connected to the creator of the universe, but rather we would see them as the holder of civilization and of humanity, and we would be conditioned to trust them and not ourselves, not our story. Of course, though the stories are suppressed, we resisted. Resistance never ended. And we resisted the enslavement, resisted the indoctrination, and resisted, even sometimes without knowing, but because of the feeling or the indwelling presence of ancestors, there was a resistance built in that allowed us to persevere, persist, and I believe to continue to emerge, unfold into knowledge of our own selfhood, personhood, and connect that with ourselves being African. I was in a convention in Jamaica one year. My story is that my father was born in Cuba, but his parents are from Jamaica. So Afro-Cuban, I say sometimes, Afro-Jamaican for sure, but the operative thing is African. I present myself as an African in the New World. I'm a New World African, this being the New World. And what I believe that the DNA technology, the science has done and will do is connect us, and it will destroy the efforts to erase who we are, to erase our identity, because the truth is in the DNA. It's in the blood. And it's like the prophet said, in the valley of dry bones, dry and dead bones, can these live again? And I think Ezekiel said to the creator, If that's what you want, if you want it, it will be so. And that's where we get the church story about, the hip bone connected to the thigh bone. Is a whole song and music in black music, black culture about reconnecting. I believe that story is an allegory for the reconnecting of our people, and that the DNA that has never disappeared and will not disappear is the connecting tool. And that we will know each other again and have evidence and knowledge of our connectedness that is real, that is objective, that is scientific, and that will place us in awareness of the continuum of our existence from the very beginning of time. And that knowledge brings a power and a vitality that is unstoppable, that will enable us to be in a position to be of greatest service to ourselves as individuals, but to humanity as well. That's the speaking stump that I'm on right now, and I share that wherever I can. What do you see as you work through mind to support the idea of Nigerian identity, and you're working through the challenges of a tripartite system, at minimum tripartite, meaning Yoruba, Hausa, Fulani, and Igbo, uh, but you're also working within the context of a state created out of the European invasion of Africa. Where do you see us going? What do you see as a possible direction for development of African people and for human beings? That's a big question, but what do you think?
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate your perspective. And that question is very loaded.
Yes.
First of all, I think we Black people, we have to begin to believe in ourselves, irrespective of geographical location you are from. Maybe it's South America, maybe you are in Africa, maybe it doesn't really matter. I tell people that one thing that makes China or even America big today is the size. The size.
Mm-hmm.
There is power in number. And all the Black people in the world put together, all of us cannot be wrong. We have to begin to believe in ourselves. And that is my driving force in mind. Nigerians were more than 200 million right now. That is an economic powerhouse right there. Imagine somebody that is only manufacturing a pencil and you are selling it maybe a pack for $1. Out of 200 million, at least 60 million will buy a pencil for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's economic power there.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing our people cannot do, Black people. We are sound-minded people. We're educated people. If you want to liberate a set of people, give them education. We're educated. Despite all the odds, we're educated people. So if you use Nigeria as a case study, and this is my personal perspective, I will not stop emphasizing on this. Nigeria is rich enough to be for every Black human being on earth what America is to the rest of the world. In terms of manpower, in terms of natural resources. All right, let's take the petroleum product, for instance. A gallon of crude oil from the ground, when you analyze it, what you are getting is not only the gas. There are a lot of things you are going to get from it. Yet Nigeria remains a poor nation. We have other mineral resources, gold, bitumen, name it. But Nigeria remain a poor nation.
Let's go and get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, you got people there.
Yes, they are warning me that it's time for us to close for the day.
Okay.
So we have to begin to believe in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody are not going to reason or think the same way, but you just need a simple majority to believe in what you are doing. When I took over, or when I joined Mind, those who believe in Mind, sometimes the monthly meeting will be maybe 10, 15.
Mm-hmm.
Next month when we go there, you are going to see this different set of 10, 15 people.
Mm-hmm.
The story is the same today. Yes, the number is better. We may attend meeting, maybe we're 35, but when you look at that 35 number, those who attended meeting last month were only 5 out of that 35.
Mm-hmm.
So people come, people go. But those who are coming and going, they share the vision and mission of that group. I think that is why we should just dwell in. We need to believe, self-belief is very important. I'm not scared that somebody want to win this election, want to send me back to Nigeria. That's where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I see every Black person on this street as my brother or my sister.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I am rich enough. I would have loved to be taking our Black brothers, the African American, to Nigeria at least 2% each year, because that is where we all belong.
Mm-hmm.
That's our home. That is our land. Let nobody scare anybody. When I become president, I'm going to deport them. That's just rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
We are not afraid. But if I may add, Americans should realize that this election is not about the two candidates. I am going to vote for a candidate of my choice. I'm not voting for a woman, but I'm voting for the best candidate for this country. So I'm not seeing how, whether it's a woman, whether it's a man, I really don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Let Black people, let's begin to believe in ourselves. That's the only thing we need to do.
Right.
Dr. Oliver, jump in. Impressions, thoughts, feelings, responses.
Well, I have the belief that we have to sort of believe in one another as well. And another thing that I for me, and I don't know whether I continue to repeat myself, but I've been to Kenya and I've been to South Africa, and I'm looking forward to going to Nigeria. But the thing that touches my heart every time I go is that people say, "Welcome home." And that's the way that I feel about it too, is because I remember before I went to Africa, I felt like the colonizers didn't succeed if I got a chance to touch my feet on the motherland. And then when people from different countries would say to me, "Welcome home, brother," it touched my heart. And so, and it helped me. I guess the thing that I also felt was as far as I could see, all the land that was there belonged to African people. And so the history behind it was important to me. And then when I got a chance to take the ancestry.com test to find out that I was from Nigeria, that was another thing that sort of touched my heart too. My wife grew up in Puerto Rico, but she took it as well, and she found her African self in taking the test. The thing that I think about too is sort of the success of, but also the traditions within families about how people make connections with one another, and the traditions that exists. So I went to Uju's wedding. She got married, and all her Nigerian relatives, many of them, came to her wedding in Minnesota. And the thing that was remarkable to me is not only the traditions that took place, but the connectedness that people felt with one another. And so I'm looking forward to making more connections with you, brother, and to be informed. But the other thing that's interesting to me, I'm sort of curious about those things that push people apart, but those things that bring people together.
True.
So as you had people that come from different parts of Nigeria, and you had things that created distance among them to get people to maybe ask questions or have challenges with one another. What do you think the thing was that brought people together? To get them to trust one another or to see themselves in another tribe and uh, um, and to see themselves as Nigerians as broadly. I'm curious about that.
Well, here in Minnesota, I think how each and every one of us came here matters most. If you look at the Somalis, they came here because there was war in that part of the world.
Yeah.
So they have that commonality. That is not the same story with Nigerians. Everybody came here for self-survival.
Mm-hmm.
So in that regard, you can see that Nigerians are not living in a particular part of the city. We are all over the place. I live in Hugo.
Mm-hmm.
And that has hampered our political strength because we are not together. The last census, I was reading somewhere they said Nigerians in Minnesota are 15,000. So I was just curious, is that Nigerian Americans or Americans Nigerians?
Mm-hmm.
Because the kids that were born here, if you ask them in the school, my son, for instance, is going to say he's an American. That's an American Nigerian.
Mhm.
That changes along the way when they grow up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the situation that brought us here that caused that little bit of self-differentiation. I don't want to say division. It's like survival of the fittest. I just want to survive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My council member, not council member, state representative is Nigerian, born here, I think, but Nigerian parents. Esther Agbaje, do you know her? Do you know Esther
Yeah, no,
Agbaje?
yes.
Yeah.
We are the same tribe.
Okay. And so wonderful to see her engaged and active in the political life of the community. And she's a strong organizer, leader, legislator, and part of this whole thing of transition that I think is also part of what we're seeing in the country with the challenge of the effort of Kamala Harris to become the next president of the country. And as you said, the best candidate in the field, and one that I believe deserves our support, one that I certainly am supporting and I'm encouraging other people to support as well. And so how do we, as you have your sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters who will see themselves increasingly, because they are, as Americans, I see myself as an American, but I have not surrendered my affinity and connection for Jamaica, and I go to Jamaica all the time, nor have I surrendered my connection to Cuba. I've never been there, but I know the language. And so I have a feeling internal. And I have not and have never surrendered my feeling of being an African. Let me restate that. One of my employees, so when I grew up, and Dr. Oliver probably the same thing, when we grew up, we had a very negative picture of Africa and Africans because of Hollywood. Johnny Weissmuller, Tarzan, who wanted to be associated with that foolishness, right? But that was the propaganda that was oppressive to us and to our culture, to our psyche, to our self-concept. And it was amusement for white people that wanted to justify their rape of Africa and their rape of African people, of African culture. They were absolving themselves of the responsibility for their criminal activity,
Right.
crimes against humanity, by saying that we were not humans, right? But that's what we grew up under. And so when I was a kid, if you called somebody black, that means you're ready to fight. If you called somebody African, ready to fight, those were insults. So one of my employees went to live in Ghana for a year or so and came back. And when I first saw her, she said, "Hello, African." And I was startled when she said that. I said, "What did you call? What you call me?" She said, "Hello, African." And the words settled in my ear, in my mind, in my heart, in my spirit. And I said, "Say that one more time. Hello, African." And as opposed to feeling negative, it felt like healing. And so that was an epiphany for me, identifying and allowing myself to enjoy the spirit, the feeling of being an African person. And it's grown from there. Listen, we're about out of time, got 4 minutes left. Let me ask you to respond to that, Dr. Williams, and then Brother Ola. How do we connect our people to a broader vision of our presence on the globe in a way that moves our people and therefore, I believe, humanity forward? I don't see us as being against Europe or against Asia, but I see us figuring out how to be for ourselves, and the selves that we will be the kind of self that is exemplary for all humanity. That's how I see it. Maybe I'm naive, but what do you think, Brother Ola?
I think it's a personal story that we have to share one person at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Believing in that dream, living it, and sharing with one another. Being comfortable with with each other, comfortable with ourselves. It's good that we have the conversation like this program we're having here now. I will really advocate that this should not be the only, shouldn't be the only one we should have. Let's keep on telling the story, sharing the story. By and large, it will resonate with our people. It will.
Dr. Alva, final word for you with you.
Yeah, for me, I think one thing is being there. I'd really recommend African Americans going to a different country in Africa. And spending time with the people and enjoying some of the things that we didn't grow up with. I mean, on the one hand, we did, because in many places the foods are very similar, and language may be different, but the hospitality that one feels together, something that I think is quite important. So you see yourself in your brothers and sisters in the different African countries. And then I think spending time with each other in the United States as well as in a different country in Africa is something that's real important, where we can work on something together. I've had different events. I had an event where I had women from 16 different African countries, coming. We talked about similar things and different challenges that we faced, or we had people from different countries in the United States, that came together and had conversations about how we saw things, but also how we ended up resolving challenges. And I think that similarity is something that I think is important too, in terms of working together so we can see each other a little bit more and differently. But collaborating together is something I think is important too.
Well, I think we've come to the end of the hour here, and Dr. Williams and Brother Ola Obadiah, thank you both for being here. What a rich and wonderful conversation. Let's do more. I'll be reaching out to you, Brother Ola, to connect with leaders of the other cultural groups or tribal groups. I think we should talk. And this is a forum where each person, each group can sort of tell the creation story. We didn't get to that today, but at some point in time, I want you to come back as a Yoruba and talk about Oduduwa and the creation story for Yoruba people, because everybody has a story. And how do we share those stories and find the similarities? But with that, let me say thank you. Have a great weekend. I'm Al McFarland. This is The Conversation with Al McFarland. We'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.